Yesterday we talked a little bit about mastery of form, which is an immense subject when you think about it. Life is all about learning about form. And when I talk about life, I'm talking about physical life. I don't feel that I'm able to talk about non-physical life, the life we have in between lives if you believe in reincarnation. But I think that's all about form. When we talk about form, we talk about the whole realm of creation. Realm of creation. Realm.
Medinate Bereshit. Medinate Mamlechet Bereshit.
And creation, when you look to it, without being disrespectful or whatever, but the creation is a happening. Something happens. And there is two ways to look at creation. There is to look at creation in the way that the universe is created and it's done and that's it. And without interfering with any beliefs, still I need to kind of bring forward another way of looking at it. Of course, when we look to creation, it seems to have moved into stages. But what I think, what I believe, and again I'm not stating that this is the truth, is that creation is something which is an ongoing process. Which means when you look to the depth of it religiously, that God never finished, and that our relationship with God is as actual as it ever was.
As actual?
Still there, all the time. That in a way, whatever you call God or how you look at God, that it's something which is active in us through us in a daily basis, from moment to moment. When you look to human activity, to the human mind, so one thing is that we really learn about form, about creation, about creating our own form. And this is not something which is kind of far out. If you just look at different fancies, if you look how we dress, how we want to present ourselves, we all try to create a unique form which is representing the uniqueness of our form. It's really a miracle when you look at it that not anything in creation is the same. Everything is absolutely unique in its form. No mind is the same. No body is the same. How we understand things is not the same. It's different. We can come to mutual understanding to a certain level. but never 100% can you understand another person. So if we move back what we talked about yesterday, that we're learning about form. We're learning to give form, and we learn how to deal with physical form and how to deal with the form which is also given to us. In the interaction between us and the world and us. And this brings forward the other side. The other side is although we are unique, and although everybody is different in how he expresses, or she expresses, and in how we perceive, and she perceives. We are more one as that we think we are. Normally. We are more in unity as a reality as we think we are. We influence each other constantly. The expectation of one person brings forward a form in another person. The feeling, the imagination we put down in daily life, the judgment we have, has a constant influence on how we are giving form. The culture you grow up in has an influence on your form.
The last sentence, the judgment.
We have towards each other, and also towards ourselves, but towards each other, has an influence in the form a person can take. So if there's a judgment in me towards another person that whatever the person will say is not very smart and not really worthwhile, it becomes very difficult for the person to speak. You understand? To show its smartness. We influence each other like that, by placing each other in a certain area, place. You're very good in knitting, but it's better that you don't speak. This is a horrible example, but basically if this happens in a relationship, what you see, it has an influence. We are influenced by this. And this is between two people. But when we look to humanity itself and groups of people, we hold each other in a certain position.
Is it connected to being in balance or not? If you're not in balance, then you're more influenced from expectations around you? Or?
Balance has an influence because it's very difficult to stay awake when you're not in a balance. But the more awake you are, the more clear is the influence and the expectation of the world around yourself. When we're very deeply asleep, we're totally entangled into the social network, just move with what we think is right to do. Or we try to duck out. But even ducking out of the expectation and lying and kind of, moving around it, you don't really stand for yourself. You're not really awake. So you're part of it. You understand what I'm talking about?
Can you say it again? I didn't understand.
When you're awake, you much more see the influence of the expectation of people around you. You don't identify with it. You see, this is an expectation, this is not what I am. This is a form which is given and which is inviting a form from me, but I've got the freedom to give this form. So to wake up, basically to free yourself without being able to free yourself, this is so incredibly different sentence, but to free yourself in a way that you are aware of what's happening and have a choice in how you can react. To find your position doesn't mean that not at the same time you're absolutely 100% part of the whole. It's both. But it's like the whole is an ocean we all drown in, we disappear in, and we get blind. So, in how I started the talk, if you look to this whole, basically what it is, it's a pool of creation, wild creation. Every person is creating his own reality, his own truth. Groups of people are creating their reality, their truth. And there's an incredible strength in that. There's an incredible strength in what we believe. If you believe that the whole world will hate you, the whole world will hate you. You believe in hate. This is where you invest in. This is where you believe is. You understand? If you believe that nobody is taking you serious, nobody will take you serious. This is the reality. This is how it is. And then when you look more to the depth, will nobody really take you serious? A lot of people will take you serious, but how serious are we able to take each other? And what is serious? You see a lot of conditions there in which we create reality. You can follow what I'm bringing forward. In a way, this is frightening stuff. So how do we kind of move back from this? How do we wake up? So in Mastery of Form, what we did yesterday is basically to start to disentangle. We disentangle from our thoughts to see that we are not what we are thinking by moving more deeply into silence. And to see that from silence, thoughts are coming and going. It is a creative dance of thoughts. It's a creative dance of thoughts. sometimes this creative dance of thoughts is very much positive and sometimes it's more negative. We are also very creative in how we are in self-criticism, self-rejection, in how we find 1,000,000 reasons not to do something we know is beneficial for ourselves. And when you really look into it, most of those thoughts, if you would write a book about it, would say, okay, this is a whole load of crap. Makes no sense. It's not rational. Excuses. Sorry, I cannot walk because I've got an itch on my nose. Reasons like that. So, when you look to this, what we did is kind of, make a little movement backwards inside ourselves to see that the background of our thoughts is silence. And thoughts are coming and going. And then when we become aware that we are not our thoughts, or we become conscious that we are not our thoughts, there is this possibility that we become conscious that something is conscious inside ourselves. What is conscious? What makes us able to see a thought? If you can use the word see there, to perceive a thought. What is this what perceives? The next step, what we went through yesterday as well, is connected with our feelings. Are we our feelings? Or do we move back to the formlessness, into the nothing, not a thing? And the same story, kind of moving back there, we are perceiving our feelings. We are perceiving our emotions. Are we our emotions? Or are they moving forward or backward?
Could you explain the difference between conscious and aware?
Can you do that?
So in the realm of form, the conscious is much more connected with the head and with thinking, language, which is a way to structure. We use language, communication, thinking, stories, beliefs, which are often also fed by language to structure. It's where the I is the individual, the I which comes, and at the beginning, in the first stage of awakening, it's just I. Then it looks to define itself, to give form, and it comes to I am. The search begins. Consciousness begins to search for form. So the whole I am movement, they leave it there. Just say I am. Consciousness in this sense is very powerful. When we become conscious, we step immediately into the present moment. Consciousness is connected with time. We talked about the time aspect of form and how formlessness is not inside time. So the first structure that consciousness hooks into is what was and what will be. This is how thinking emerges. This happened and this happened and this happened, which means I fear that this happened and this happened. This is where the healing begins, in the reformation of how we see ourselves. This is where SE is happening. There's a story from what was, which is told, and which is held also energetically, which in the present moment becomes available to be seen from another perspective, from another position. Consciousness is very much connected with the now. The more we become purely conscious, the more we see that everything that was is just existing in the now. Everything that has ever happened, every history, collective history, private history, is upheld in the now as memory. Everything we imagine our future to be, or we project into the future, our imagination of what will be this afternoon is happening in the now. So consciousness is in a way, in the now, formless, in the level of form as we know it, although in some ways it's still a form of perception. Doing time. We're doing time. So when we do nothing, like in the exercise yesterday, we also opened a possibility to stop doing time. Sounds like a prisoner, but we're doing time here as human beings. We will be let out at the end.
Consciousness is doing time?
Consciousness is doing time. Not in its purity, but as it's moving through the human perception, it's doing time. It's structuring through time, which in the first place is past, present, and future. And the present is the center point, which is the opening to something behind perception, something deeper. When consciousness unhooks and becomes conscious of consciousness, it can be almost like looking in mirror after mirror, mirror reflecting mirror, something spirals. Which is almost explosive to form, but also very, very liberating. And this is what people call awakening in inner growth. The awakening.
You become conscious that you are conscious.
That you are conscious, that you are conscious.
That you are conscious. And conscious.
This also liberates a position of realizing that behind all of these stories, past, present, future, little girl, woman, what will be the old person, behind all of these stories there's a witness. A conscious witness. Not caught in time, with an overview. Also, it witnesses when we change our stories. When we realize that what happened yesterday was a misunderstanding and it wasn't what we experienced, it was actually something else. This is also witnessed. This witness is very curious, which is partly why we hook into form. It's really curious. It's getting information. It really wants to know how it is to react in form to a certain situation. At a funeral, it's really curious how people are moving with this. It's all being recorded in a kind of individual memory, but also a memory beyond that. It's a very strong drive because this curiosity is moving with a kind of joy that even in terrible situations, earthquakes, it's alive. It's curiosity. It's a major motor of our evolution. Science.
The witness is above the consciousness or above the
It's also has levels, but it's within the dimension of consciousness. I say that quite particularly because we're going to now look at the observer, which has quite a different flavor.
When you look at the witness and you move into the witness, we all know the witness. It's like being conscious of something which is happening, which is basically, in its essence, the witness is absolutely disentangled.
Is what?
Disentangled. We just witness. It's a little bit what is brought forward in science as well. You do an experiment and you don't get entangled in it. You just witness. It's driven by a very deep curiosity. How does this work? You understand what we're talking about?
Isn't this being aware? Isn't this the meaning of being aware?
No, we make a difference between consciousness and awareness. And now Georgie will talk about awareness, and then the difference is coming more clearly forward, I hope.
With witnessing, if there's a trauma at an early age, something which is not containable, the person can often move to the witness position. It's almost to dissociate, meaning the feelings are not felt. The reality is not there. It's a place to see, like if you're in a car accident and you see it from above. Here is this ambulance is coming, there's this happening, there's this happening. It's not like the feeling factor is involved.
This is the disentanglement I'm talking about.
Also with the witness, there is a subject and an object. There is the one that sees, and this is very much a quality of consciousness. It splits into two. That which sees and that which is seen. So I am seeing myself lying down on the floor with a broken leg. Subject, object. I am seeing myself having an incredible argument at the techno. So I'm in the argument, but also I'm witnessing it. From a place even beyond ego. Here is Georgie in an argument. And it leaves its imprint on memory. And you can find the witness in memory.
Also, when you're very emotional, or there's something happening which is basically too big to contain, or you scream from anger, the witness is often awakened. It's like you're screaming and at the same time you witness that you're screaming. You recognize what I'm talking about? Yeah. Some of us, no. I see you look there. We all have this period when we do something and at the same time we're very self-conscious of what we're doing. It's like we are witnessing ourselves. So this witnessing is part of being awake.
It's always there. but
It's
we're not
always
aware.
there, but we are not always in connection with it. It's always there.
In trauma, you're not aware that you're connecting to that place.
The opposite, in trauma, we often kind of move towards the place that we only witness it.
That we
Only witness it. It's like sometimes how do you say it in English? But we dissociate,
Yeah.
and we dissociate often towards the witness. We're just witnessing the whole scene of what's happening. On the other layers, we are not very much part of it.
It's connected with memory.
So if we don't have a memory of it,
What's happening is that we move back in daily life to the other parts, in which the other parts we live from, we come to that later to explain it, cannot fit in what is witnessed in the trauma, so this memory is blocked. This memory is blocked because everything we recognize in life, everything we feel, everything we think, everything we understand is based on memory. Everything is basically memory. There's nothing new. We can place something based on memory. We open up to a person based on memory. You understand? And even if we don't know the person, it's based on memory because we recognize something in the person based on memory which is attractive to us. So if a memory is very destructive, our system pulls out this memory. This has nothing to do with consciousness or awareness or perception.
It cuts off the witness.
It cuts off the witness at that moment.
It's a step beyond dissociation.
Yeah.
To block completely any memory, but also something is broken in the ability to witness them. Because the memory is there, it is in the unconscious, it does come out later.
Yeah.
When the witnesses are allowed. And we put fences around fences to protect that this information will not come because it's so threatening on other levels.
Because then
to form a conversation.
Yeah, then kind of to live according to memory, if this would be part, it would at that moment to be too big an influence on the reality we experience ourselves to be in, that doesn't fit in. It's too unsafe to let it in. Do you understand what I'm saying? And this is really important to understand, that all the time we chuck out things in our lives which are too dangerous. We don't look at it. It doesn't exist.
To preserve form.
To preserve form.
This care in that.
And the more we identify these with being a certain form, and this is what I have to be, the more we check out, the more we fall asleep. This is another way to say exactly the same. The less we witness, the less we are awake.
If everything is going to memory, if you're not part of everything, then it's not really as a thing to freedom, because it's all based about, you said you relate to other people because you recognize them. So where's the freedom?
Exactly. So I give one example and then I leave it to Georgie. When we look to the universe, how we know it, the physical universe, it's built by building stones, chemicals. We know the chemicals. They're not endless chemicals. There is a certain amount of chemicals. And from these chemicals we can build a whole universe with all the different forms which are there. You understand?
Mm-hmm. So you recognize the chemicals?
It's like how the mind is working. There is a certain amount of emotions we have, a certain amount of feelings we have. And in between these building stones we can build all kinds of different realities, like a whole universe. But the amount of building stones is not endless. There is a certain amount. The same with memory. You understand?
No, what is the same memory? Memory
There is a certain amount of, there's building stones to our memory. That means that on the same theme we can kind of, make a lot of different things, but the basic memory, recognition, There is only a limited amount of building stones. I don't know how to say it in a different way.
It's like Lego.
It's like Lego. We build our reality like Lego with the building stones we have.
I can absolutely and totally guarantee you that there is something extremely powerful and indestructible beyond memory.
Yeah.
Memory
Absolutely.
is not the end point.
No. This is just a form. But when you want to move beyond form, you have to also to acknowledge that the way how we create and perceive reality is something which is not absolute. It's legal.
It's a form.
It's a form.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a
No.
form.
It's not what we are.
So the dissociation is basically just perceived now as it is. Like if you're aware that you're functioning on your memories and experiences that you've had and collected at all times, and then it ignites some reaction in the presence. What you basically need to do is just perceive the presence as it is without acknowledging the past at all. Because this is what really is.
Yeah.
Exactly. So basically we're walking around, I'm happy, I'm loving, I'm nice, and then something happens. Watch, this is not what I am. Dissociation is throwing you out of this.
Also, this is not what I think it is.
Exactly, this is not what I think it is. It's a shock.
It is
It's a
something
very deep shock.
unique that just happened, and it doesn't really have to do anything with my memory from the past and my reaction to whatever happened in the past.
Exactly. So in psychology, this whole movement into dissociation, you shouldn't let people to dissociate. It's not good. So it's very much based on not dissociate, associate, identify. Because you lost your identification. The way I would like to teach to work with trauma, and I work with trauma, is to integrate dissociation into the whole system, which wakes up. Is a difference.
Yeah. So acknowledgement and acceptance, and then restart. And
Exactly.
you have no issue with it anymore.
Reboot
Reboot.
the system with an awake witness. Okay.
And,
Sorry.
and children, because they have, let's say, less memory, they are more awake.
Our children are much more awake as most adults.
So they have like witness, they're more witnessing the situation.
Yes, and so they're more in existence because they've only taken. No, they're in existence, which is slightly different. So ask the question again later.
When we explain the different layers, because it gets too confused, because we have to go through the different layers.
But they haven't really taken on the form of mind and the form of
The
ego and the form of personality yet. It's growing and it's changing.
Consciousness is so much connected also with an I. If there is no I, there is not a separate consciousness. There is a collective consciousness. And children are much more in the collective, in the beginning when they're young.
And in a way they describe themselves in the third person. Georgie is now playing. They speak about themselves almost from a witness position, also when they come into language at the beginning. So there's a lot which is still taking form. So it's a whole story in itself, kiddies.
Awareness.
So in inner growth they call this awakening, waking up, which is really a metaphor, because the opposite of this is not sleep, which is a beautiful thing, necessary, rejuvenating. It's more illusion, dream state, reactive patterns. And waking up is when the patterns break. You have an awakening. But you awaken to something. Something is awakened. In itself, awakening is not an endpoint. Becoming conscious of conscious of conscious, it's like a window opens. In a way, you recognize yourself again. There's this newborn I. And freedom. Existence, we call this. Behind the window of consciousness, the whole window is just a window, it's the light, this existence which is flowing through it. I exist. Is almost more comprehensive than I am looking for an identity. I exist. Some people have this periodically throughout their lives, this awakening and reawakenings. Others don't quite know what we're talking about. But it's always a function of letting go. Letting go of thoughts. Letting go of beliefs as absolute and permanent. Letting go of imagination. And letting go in the sense of not identifying with, not in the sense of rejecting it or making an either or. The thoughts are happening, we take the investment out of them. So the next layer of perception, awareness. This is a form of perception that almost redefines perception. It's not about seeing. It's not about even physical feeling. When we become conscious, we become, first of all, in the here and now, we get a sense of the consciousness of our body, in the room, in this time, in this space. Awareness is much more connected with feeling. Our perceptive ability to feel. The am, the being, I am, leaves you in the space of how does it feel to exist as you. How does it feel? What is the feeling around being Natalie in general? And this in itself has a refinement. How does it feel? What's the essence of this feeling of being here?
It's the one who is experiencing.
Bob called it the felt sense. So we have our senses, eyes, ears, touch, smell, and we have the felt sense, the feeling sense. With no story. So it makes it hard to describe because I can say, you're feeling, and I start a story already. But it's an energetic thing. To feel an energy even without naming it. The moment you name it, consciousness is beginning to structure.
It's just pure experience. It's the taste of the coffee before you experience it. Before you give it words to it. Analyze it. Analyze is conscious.
The Tibetans call it sentience, the sentient. We are sentient beings. So it includes animals, it includes sentience. The Tibetans, in their language, call this the sentience. Sentience is feeling. They talk about sentient beings, feeling beings. So you can communicate with a dog, for example, through feeling.
Through sentience.
They're very much in being. Not identification, being.
What I wanted to say that when you give name to the coffee, it doesn't have to offend the awareness of the tasting the coffee.
No, it doesn't have, but it's the difference between awareness is that awareness moves through the sentience, and consciousness gives us the tool to communicate, to decipher, to structure this and that and that and that and that and that and that. With the sentience in itself doesn't structure, doesn't divide, and doesn't bring together. Is that right? Kacha.
Coffee.
What?
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. Okay.
Awareness doesn't bring together. So,
No, it doesn't divide and it doesn't bring together. Awareness is about being. It's the experience as it is.
you cannot share the experience.
Oh yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah, you
very
can. Yeah.
So that's not togetherness.
What?
So that's not togetherness. Sharing the experience.
Yes. Awareness is moving through everything. So there's and is very much there. It expands, so you can sense the whole atmosphere of a room through awareness. And it's really the individuals in the room doesn't interfere with our ability to feel the atmosphere, which is there. It moves through and a level of feeling which is really beyond partition structures.
Okay, but you're not together. You just feel, but it is you that feel.
Is there a subject and an object? We share awareness much more. Awareness, if there's a subject and an object, awareness is that which brings it into the first movement towards unity. It's shared.
You just said it doesn't bring it.
It doesn't bring because it's always there. When you open up the sentience, what you see is what is shared. It is there. It's not something we create. It's just there. There is a human togetherness. It's there. We can do as if it's not there. Oh, I woke up. There's a human togetherness. We're sitting with 5 of us in a car. You understand?
So when what is known as this movement beyond regular awareness to awareness of awareness of awareness, and this refinement of feeling, refinement of love, allowance of feeling, what it leads to in terms of inner growth is what is classically known as enlightenment.
The what?
Enlightenment. What happens with awareness when we become aware of our awareness, feeling the feeling, not the feeling as an object, but feeling that which can feel, which has quite a different flavor to consciousness. In a way, consciousness dissolves, and you go into pure sensitivity of feeling, refining. What happens is that we become wider and wider and wider, and opens up this feeling observer, something which is really observing, but it's not observing a thing, it's observing with these kind of loving eyes through everything. Where there is suffering, it is suffering. Where there is joy, it is in joy. It's a very soft observation which is beyond form.
There's no division.
Beyond the physical. And this is, again, a function of allowing ourselves through the movement, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be.
So it's like observing the witnessing.
This is another thing.
It's
This is another thing again.
observing and
Basically,
experiencing together.
It's experiencing and being aware of the experience. I think to rephrase a little bit, Georgie says it very, very, very clear. So if you've got the consciousness is basically dividing you and me. Awareness, when it opens up to the depth, is not either or. It's not you or me. It's and. So the opening up of the depth of the sentience of the awareness brings us in a situation where there is and. There's and joy and there is and pain. And you're suffering and we are together. and. So it's shared. It's much more connected. It's much more together. It's not kind of looking at what is the situation of Ido. It's experiencing the situation and in a togetherness, in the atmosphere, which is there right now.
But why it's not like this, exactly what you said, in the state of consciousness?
Because it's a different. Why don't we hear color?
We don't.
What?
We don't?
There is a possibility at a certain moment to hear color, but it's the same. You know, it's absolutely a different part of ourselves. Why don't we think with our S?
That's too much.
That's too much, you understand? It's how we are built. The consciousness will move at a certain moment towards the awareness. The I will move into the M. This is the process we're moving through. So the consciousness will move into the M, but that doesn't mean that the consciousness is the same as the awareness. It's different aspects. It means that we can witness the observer and observe the witness. It's not the same. This makes it, and that's possible. If it wasn't the same, this was not possible.
But you know, none of this is that important.
No.
The observing the witness, and all of this is just windows to something which is absolutely more basically who we are, which is the existence which floods through this window. So when we open through awareness these inner doors and move through the gaps of the forest of our feelings and our pain and our feeling griefs and pains and entanglements, and there's an opening, existence, like on the level of the mind, the same existence bursts through, and the awareness expands like crazy, and the consciousness, normally it's followed also by an awakening, just as awakening is followed by a movement of enlightenment, because this existence, this basic energy of who we are, is bursting through, and things come to life. So the love becomes almost overpowering. Everything with this is people. You see people in these satoris, they go through periods of bliss, and then they hook again. And this is where the next stage begins, which is the stage of realization.
It's like when you talk with people about the problem, it's an act of awareness of the problem. More not conscious. It's like to be aware of the problem that you have and to talk about it and make it maybe to make changes. No?
Basically,
Both.
Basically both.
But both of it is when you talk
cannot
to somebody.
About it that you are like
Yeah.
being conscious
Yeah.
about it, about the problem.
Yeah. But if you sit and listen to somebody about a problem, it's the same movements which is needed to really be there for somebody else. And this is the same as an aspect of yourself. It's the movement of let it go, take out all story. Otherwise, how can you possibly allow
Of course, yeah.
the perception and let it be? Allow their feelings, meaning if they're having feelings which to you are forbidden, there's a challenge to completely let it be. Which means that if, for example, we have a terror of loneliness, we're really afraid of loneliness, and this person is extremely lonely, and we're not allowed able in ourselves to let it be, then what we begin to do is to block this, even energetically. Okay, don't go there, we don't go there. I mean, we do it with our children, we don't go to that rejection place. There's also a language going on in energy on the level of awareness. Which feelings can be. And this creates, then, it can create a chaos and an argument in the mind and a whole negotiation and repression and the whole process shared. So let it go and let it be is the key movements in moving backwards. And I don't mean moving backwards like this, it's opening, allowing existence.
So consciousness comes from being physical.
Yes, I think so. And it's not, some people, Deepak Chopra says everything is consciousness, but we are unconscious. People are unconscious and they still exist. We go to sleep every night. There are degrees of consciousness. I don't know if we're conscious when we die.
I'm absolutely sure when I look to my
I think so.
near-death experiences, and kind of moving over the edge a little bit ahead of you, is that consciousness is something which is physical, awareness is something which is physical.
Awareness is physical too?
Yes.
But we don't want, we can't give these stories.
With the body.
No.
It does? Awareness
Original
dies with the body?
Oh my God.
Doesn't die and it
This is a
dies.
death course already.
Yes, okay, so we leave it for now.
And also,
We'll know.
You'll know.
actually,
And
actually,
everybody will know.
you already know.
Yeah.
You really know
You know.
this, and you can inquire and explore. You know this because all that there is the now. Your position in the death after a body is here now.
Yeah.
You know it. It's not. It's like when you die, it will be so mukala.
It will be like desert all
Yes.
over.
And when you're born, it will be, oh, here we go again.
But Georgina, you were saying that letting go and let be are key movements towards what? Disentangling from
Opening,
form?
yes, disentangling for form, which allows your existence. And the third movement, so let's complete it round,
Yeah.
is out of emptiness, perception through emptiness. And when we perceive through emptiness, the perceiving from a point of consciousness and the observer, it almost becomes the same. Very an existential point, let's just call it an existential point, in which all things which have a time are passing. We see everything as transient, which it is, every form.
Can you say it again?
We see everything as passing. We, that which doesn't pass, that which is eternal, is looking into the world of form through all that which comes and goes, which has a beginning and an end, including our own body, including our own beliefs, including our feelings, and including our experiences, all that which is happening in time. And all that which is held in space, which is not forever. So we see through time and space. And in this, existence becomes very, very, very pure, and fear falls away, or is realized as no longer necessary through sometimes a very hard process. And existence takes on its super indestructive quality.